Okay, in this lecture, we're going to talk about cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is easily one of the biggest concepts in social psychology. And in my regular life, I hear people talking about cognitive dissonance all the time, and they're talking about it wrong. So this lecture, I hope, is going to clear up for you what cognitive dissonance is. And now when you hear other people say it wrong, it can irritate you too as well. Okay. So cognitive dissonance occurs when people experience adrenaline because they have two inconsistent attitudes or behaviors. And to reduce that adrenaline, that uncomfortable adrenaline, people change their attitudes or their behavior, or they justify their attitudes or their behavior. So essentially, cognitive dissonance occurs when we feel kind of like hypocrites. Like we've done something one time and then not done the same thing another time, and there's really no good reason why we didn't do the same thing twice. Or we said one thing one time and then said something else another time, and there was no good reason to change. So we experience dissonance because we want to be consistent. And when we're inconsistent, that feels really uncomfortable. So I'm going to give a couple of different examples of cognitive dissonance. On the next slide, I'm going to have a comic. Pause the video, read the comic, and then when you're ready, unpause the video and I'll talk about it. So the dog is using cognitive dissonance because this blonde-haired guy is saying, okay, well, I have this inconsistent attitude and behavior. My behavior is that I stay here and work, and my attitude, though, is that this job sucks. So now my attitude and my behavior are inconsistent. My attitude is this job sucks, but my behavior is I'm staying here. So what to do? Well, I can change my attitude and say, I must work here because I love this work. This job is great. So now I don't have an inconsistent attitude and behavior. My attitude is I think this job is great, and my behavior is I'm working here. So the next example is when you change your behavior, not your attitude. So there's a study that went to a rec center and had asked women if they would sign a petition saying that it was important to save water. And they saved water, and then they, because they were at the rec center, most of these women would then go into the locker rooms and shower. And there was a research assistant not watching the women at all, not anywhere that she could see the women, but she could hear when the showers would turn on and off. And she timed how long the showers were running. And what the researchers found was that the women who signed the petition saying that the women who signed the petition saying they thought it was important to monitor water consumption and not to use as much water actually took shorter showers. So those women couldn't change their attitude. They'd already expressed the attitude signing this petition saying that it's important to save water. And now the only option they had was to change their behaviors. And so the women who signed the petition actually changed their behaviors and took shorter showers than the women who didn't sign the petition. And that's because the women who signed the petition would have experienced cognitive dissonance if they signed this petition saying it's important to save water and then took a really long shower. Lastly, the thing you can do is you can explain how your behavior and your attitude actually are consistent. So you can say, no, really, there's no inconsistency between what I'm doing and what I'm saying. So the classic example I always give is for smokers. So we know that smoking is really bad for you and that people will die from smoking. And I could have chosen so many different statistics to put up here. But the one I chose is that people oftentimes think that smoking only causes lung cancer, but actually it can cause cancer almost anywhere in the body. And that 1 in 3 cancer deaths in the United States are caused from smoking. And if you give the statistic to a smoker will say, obviously that smoker isn't smoking to kill him or herself. She's not saying, well, I'm smoking because I want to die. But I want to die really slowly and over a really long period of time. So smokers aren't suicidal. They're not trying to have painful deaths. But their behavior is inconsistent with that because everybody knows that smoking is bad for you. So what do you do? How do you say, well, how do you justify the fact that your behavior is that you are doing something that is literally fatal and will slowly kill you with your attitude that you love yourself and you want to live a nice, healthy life? So what you do is you say, well, I actually work out. So you see, my attitudes and behavior aren't inconsistent because I want to live a long, healthy life, and so I'm working out. And the working out kind of maybe makes up for the smoking. So, of course, this doesn't make any sense at all. Working out is not going to have some fantastic effect on, whether or not you get breast cancer, but it does make smokers feel better. And so smokers are able to justify their smoking by saying, well, it's not really that I have this inconsistent attitude and behavior, because here you see I have this behavior that is consistent with my attitudes. I'm working out because I want to live a long and healthy life. And they just kind of gloss over this other behavior that's inconsistent. So that's a way that some people experience cognitive dissonance. And instead of changing an attitude or behavior, they can sort of explain away this inconsistency. But it always falls apart under close investigation. And this is why people who are doing this really don't like when you very carefully examine their arguments and say, well, that doesn't really make sense, because it creates a lot of discomfort if you point out that there are these problems and that there are inconsistencies between their attitudes and their behaviors. The last thing we'll talk about in this lecture is post-decision dissonance. And the idea behind post-decision dissonance is once you commit to a choice, you're going to like it more because you can't go back. And so now your behavior is fixed, but you can change your attitude. So if I were to bring people into the lab and I were to have, let's say, these 10 movies out on the table, and I said, which of these movies would you like to watch? And please rank them in order of preference. And so they rank these orders. So this is however they rank the videos. And then I say, oh, you know what? It turns out that we only have your 5th and 6th choice available. All the other ones right now, people are watching them. So even though you ranked all 10 of these movies, we actually only have Finding Nemo and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So you actually have to pick between those two about which one you want to watch. So let's say you pick Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. What will happen is you'll experience post-decision dissonance. So your attitude toward Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade will improve. So you'll actually move up your feelings, your attitude toward Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and rank these things so that now your attitudes towards that movie is much more positive. Because again, you can't change the behavior. You've chosen this movie and now you're going to watch it. But you can change your attitude. So you increase your positive attitude toward this movie. And I can also give an example from my own life. When I went to graduate school, I applied to a lot of different graduate schools. And I remember I had this sort of ranking in my head of, where I wanted to go. And I interviewed at different places. And I ended up going someplace, or I ended up choosing someplace that initially I hadn't ranked very highly. But by the time I got there, I was super stoked about that school. And I was like, oh my God, it's going to be amazing. And everything about this is going to be fabulous. And that was because I had committed to going to graduate school there, and I couldn't back out on that. That was a done deal. And so now my attitude toward that graduate school really changed.